Well, good morning, everybody. It is a beautiful Saturday. It's a little chilly out there right now. It's not supposed to warm up completely today, but tomorrow's supposed to be in the 60s. It has been so cold. And I know particularly with a lot of effort being made to by Metro and a lot of advocacy groups to actually keep the overflow shelter open for individuals experiencing homelessness. That's been very, very important. And my thanks go out to Metro Social Services, the Metro Homeless Impact Division, and a number of other groups, Salvation Army, the Mission, Room in the Inn, so many groups that are out there. I know I'm not naming everybody, but who have kept their doors open and made sure people could come inside when it's been so cold. So I needed to say that. Thank you for everybody doing that. And maybe we'll get out of this cold spell, hopefully fairly soon. I think next week it's supposed to be a little bit warmer. So anyway, let's hope so. My guest today is Tina Tuggle. Tina, thank you for being on the show today. She is the Vice President of Community Impact with the Tennessee Titans. Tina, how you doing this morning?
I am so good. Thank you so much for having me, Vice Mayor.
Sure thing. So I usually ask, people who have watched this show for the last, it seems like 1,000 years, but it's only been like 2 years. I usually ask a real irrelevant question about something, and usually I ask about something behind you, but there is nothing.
Not a lot back there.
No, that's really sad. So how come you don't have any pictures on the wall? Don't you have a lot of?
I have tons of pictures, but I didn't think they were a great backdrop. I wanted the focus to be on me.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, I guess we're through for the day then. So, so I assume working for the Tennessee Titans, you probably have like all kinds of autographed memorabilia from all the players. Is that right?
Actually, no, I don't. I try to see them as people and not as a celebrity status. And so, it would be like asking your sibling for an autograph. I typically don't go and ask the guys for autographs for personal reasons.
Okay. Well, I have a sister that's an actress, so I do ask her for her autograph.
But do you keep it for yourself or do you ask for others?
No, I try to sell it to other people. Right now, it's kind of difficult right now. No, I did it for other reasons. Yeah, I don't really need her autograph. So
I have tons of autograph items for the community, but not for myself.
Okay, well then that's going to be an obvious question for you, Tina, as we get started in just a second. So I'm going to ask it to you, but not right now. I'm just going to tell you what it is, and it's going to be like for all these groups that want stuff to auction off or to give to something or whatever. Everybody's going to want to know who to contact. So remember that. And then if you want to deflect that question, you can. All right. Okay. So, so welcome everybody. It's about 4 minutes after 10. Tina Tuggle is our guest. I know we had told you that Sheila Calloway was going to be the guest, juvenile court judge, but she had a conflict and Tina was nice enough to step in. So Tina, thank you for coming into the game. This is all going to be metaphors about the Titans. Tina Tuggle, Vice President, Community Impact with the Tennessee Titans. Council member John Rutherford is on today. And if some other people get on, I'll let you know that as well. So, Tina, the first question to all my guests is, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? What have you been doing? And how did you end up working for the Titans?
Yeah, so I am a native Tennessean, but I'm from West Tennessee, Memphis, born and raised, and I went to Tennessee State University. So I came to Nashville, but had gone back to Memphis when the Oilers were coming through when they had just introduced themselves as the Tennessee Oilers. And as part of the NFL Yes campaign, they were traveling through the state to garner interest in having a professional NFL team in our great state. And they were in Memphis, and I worked at Rhodes College at the time. And they hosted a 3-day training camp there. And, I was kind to the coaching staff. They had left their administrative staff back in Houston and were wanting to hire local administrative staff. And my kindness paid off. They offered me a job, and I've been with the organization since September of 1997. starting 2 years with the Tennessee Oilers. And then in 99, we became the Tennessee Titans.
So kindness, could you, that's a word that's not used often these days. So you were just nice to people and they offered you a job?
Literally. So the story is, so at the time we were at Rhodes College, and our supervisor then told us, like, listen, the Oilers are coming to town. We need to impress these guys. And so I need everyone on their best behavior. And so a couple of the coaches were not happy because they didn't have everything that they needed for practice. Sorry, I have a puppy and you're going to hear him bark occasionally. So I will apologize now. But they were not happy because they didn't have everything that they needed for practice. And I offered my office and my services to help. And they took me up on it and were able to go to practice. And so a couple of hours later, we were sitting in the cafeteria and this gentleman walks over to me and said, "Who is Tina?" We were at a table, myself and my coworkers at the time. And he said, "I am." And he said, "May I speak with you for a moment?" And I said, "Sure." Got up and went to go speak with this gentleman, understanding that I didn't know a lot about football, so I didn't know who this person was. He introduced himself. He said, "I'm Jeff Fisher, and I'm the head coach here. And I hear that you were very helpful to our coaches and would love to have you come work for us." Now, this predates the internet and all the information that we have access to now. So in my mind, I'm like, I don't play and I don't coach. So what would that mean? And so he invited me back on Saturday and to meet with him and our then general manager, Floyd Reese. And they said, "Hey, we don't have anyone. We would love to have you come join us, and we would help you in the transition." That was August 2nd, 1997, and my first day was September 2nd of that same year. So oftentimes, whether it's young people or my son or my coworkers or whomever, like, it's really important to be authentically good, even when no one's watching, because you just never know who that person is or how they can aid you in your desire to in this journey.
So what were you doing at Rhodes?
So I worked with Aramark Dining Services. And it was I was in accounts and payable and receivables at that time.
Okay. So just by being helpful, by working hard, by being nice, understanding, you, Jeff Fisher, the former football coach, and Floyd Reese came up and offered you a chance to come to Nashville and be with the Titans.
Yeah, and it has been an amazing journey ever since. Like, in a million years, if you would have asked 25-year-old Tina, would she be here today? I probably wouldn't have even known here existed. And so just having this opportunity to grow within an organization that really cares about the people. We've always had really great leadership and ownership, and it's just been really phenomenal for me to be able to grow as a person and a professional and have these people that I can call my family, because, I spend more time with the people in that building than I do pre-pandemic and post-pandemic than I do at home. And so it's been an amazing journey for me and my family.
All right. So tell me, because you said you don't know much about football.
No, in 97, Tina didn't know much about football. Tina knows a lot about football today.
Okay. All right. So now we know a lot about football. So, all right. So do you, let me ask you some questions about football then.
Okay.
Who's your favorite professional football team?
The Tennessee Titans.
Okay. That's a good answer. Checking. So tell me, all right. So you came with the Titans from Memphis here. They've been here since, I think, 99.
97 was the Oilers. So we
right,
played.
But 99 was when they first got here. Is that right?
99 is when our offices were always here. We would travel to Memphis that first year and just play the games. And then we played at Vanderbilt for a year, but then the stadium, Adelphia Coliseum, was open in 99.
And do you know everybody who acquired a PSL in 1990? Do you know all the people who did that?
I know all of them personally.
And have you talked to them personally?
No, I do not know every PSL holder. I do know some, and I do have great relationships with a few of them. Yes.
Okay. And if for some reason there would be somebody you would be talking to that had a PSL that you didn't really know, you would be really nice to them. Is that right?
I would hope to be very nice to them, whether they are a PSL holder or otherwise.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have a further conversation after this call.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So tell everybody what do you do for the Titans? And have you always done the same thing, or have you kind of changed around?
I've had several positions, but most recently I am Vice President of Community Impact, which is a title that basically anything that has to do with making a difference in a community, whether it be the use of our brand, our likeness, our players and our staff, or our foundation. How are we being philanthropic and making a difference in our community? It's not the Titans in the Nashville community, we're all one. And so any opportunities or ways that we can do that typically go through the Community Impact Department, and then we determine if there's a need, a good fit, and how we can implement it, and if it makes sense.
Okay, so let's we'll break that down a little bit. So so obviously the Titans are a major player in the city. Major player, yeah, they provide a major impact to what's going on in the city. I know the foundation gives out money because I've seen what they've done at games, and I know that the players probably get lots and lots of requests to show up at different events and be a part of different things. How does all that work? Why don't you take people through kind of how if somebody, I mean, from the standpoint of you have a child that just is a big fan and is going through a tough time, and they reach out to a bigger organization that says, you know what, we this is what we do, and we want grant funds from the foundation. How does all that stuff work?
Yeah, so there's foundation and then there's community impact. And so for the sake of understanding, I will separate those two. But when I'm thinking about community impact, I'll call it that. But then when I'm thinking specifically about foundation dollars and contributions, we'll go that direction. So just to go back a little bit, if there is you see players at various events, right? Whether they're at schools or hospitals or Make-A-Wish and those sorts of things, those come through Community Impact Department. And we kind of try to separate them based on bucket. So if there is a need for schools and hospitals or health and wellness, that's one bucket. If there's a need for the underserved community, there's another bucket there. And we want to make sure that we are kind of filling each one of those buckets, because we understand that there's a great need or there's a great desire to have players at as many opportunities as people would like. But I say all of that to say it's impossible. If you can only imagine the number of requests there are for Derrick Henry or Ryan Tannehill, if we were to fill all of those, they wouldn't be able to play a game on Sunday because there's a ton of requests. So we have to be very selective. We have to make sure that it's something that is a good use of the player's time, and it's something that they are comfortable doing. There are oftentimes requests that may not necessarily be comfortable for the player, may not be a feasible thing to ask them to participate in. So we try to filter those and work with them closely to make sure they're comfortable with it, and B, that it doesn't conflict with their ability to perform their job on the field as well.
Okay. So a group would call in, and let's say that let's say Make-A-Wish. Mm-hmm. Make-A-Wish makes a request. How do they do that through your office?
So I have a great relationship with Beth over at Make-A-Wish. I think one of our favorite things to do are those Make-A-Wish requests when they'll call me and we'll talk through what the wish is. The wish could be for a specific player, or the wish could be, I'd like to be a coach for the day, or the wish could be, I want to call a play, or simply, I just want to be on the sidelines pregame. So it depends on the wish of the kid. And then Beth will tell you probably there's not many times I've turned her away, other than during the pandemic when we had a large number of restrictions. But we still try to find ways to make those wish. But many of those come through the player or the Community Impact Department. And then we filter them to make sure we check all the boxes and everything pans out okay. And then we'll approach the player or the coach or whomever it is that they're requesting.
All right. So basically, if somebody's looking for, they want Derrick Henry to show up at an event, they would make the request through the community and through the community impact division of the Tennessee Titans.
Yes, that is correct.
Is there a form that they would use online? Is it something they make a phone call for?
When you go to TennesseeTitans.com, there's a community tab at the top. If you click on that, it has everything from player appearances, donation requests, auction support, foundation. So pretty much any needs the community has or questions they have, it'll outline exactly how to go about making those requests.
Okay. All right. So switch over to, and this may not, because I know there's a foundation. So if another group, let's just say Make-A-Wish again, if they're looking for grant assistance, does that come through you all, or does that immediately go to the foundation?
So I'm community, I'm also part of the foundation as well. So yeah, the answer is yes. If Make-A-Wish, whether it's a table sponsorship or request for foundation assistance, they will send either a sponsorship request email to someone in the foundation, whether it be myself, Ralph Ockenfels, or Adolfo Birch, or they could also send it to someone in leadership. They'll send it to us and we'll filter it to make sure that it's something that makes sense for us to support in that regard. Whether, like I said, whether it's a table sponsorship or if it's something else beyond that comes through us as well.
Okay, let me ask you from a broader perspective. It's one thing, obviously, to say, we have an event going on. Would you mind being a sponsor or a table host? But do you all do larger things in the sense of, and how does that work? So obviously, there's lots of things and lots of very important organizations in the city. Do you all go out looking for how you can make a community impact in a particular way?
So yes. And the answer to both questions is yes and yes. Yes, we do larger things, and yes, we're often always looking for ways to make that impact. One of the things that is most important to us is sustainability. How can we make an impact that is something that's sustainable, that moves the needle for the community beyond just someone saying, hey, can you give me money for X? Is there an opportunity for us to be able to be a part of it from an organization standpoint? Is there an opportunity for our staff and our players to serve, which serve as an integral part of who we are as an organization? So how are we serving by providing assistance? And oftentimes assistance goes beyond just the financial piece of it. So if the foundation is going to provide some level of assistance, there has to be, if we're thinking long-term, what are the sustainable objectives here? How can the organization be involved long-term? How can we partner beyond just handing a check to an organization? So we're oftentimes thinking of, we're thinking all of that through in the process. So when we're approached by that, it takes us a while because we want to make sure that we're properly vetting this opportunity to make sure that it's one that makes sense for both the asking organization as well as the Titans organization as well.
Okay, so let me ask you, this is a tougher question. It's a tougher question for any group that's in this kind of this area. Are there particular areas that, I know you say sustainability, but Nashville, and you've been here the last 20 some years, so you've seen it grow. Mm-hmm. This city is, because it is growing so quickly, has issues, everything from affordability and affordable housing to serious concerns about juvenile crime, yeah. And then the overall aspect of how do you take a city that's growing so fast and make sure we don't leave our citizens behind? Mm-hmm. So particularly for some of the areas that you're looking for, does some of that come from the ownership, from Amy Strunk? Is she involved in conversations and she goes like, what, I'm really interested in this area, so why don't we focus that way? How does that work? How do you all figure out, with all the different things going on, where you want to try to make a difference?
Yeah, great. That's actually not a difficult question. It's a great question because one of the things that I am most pleased with within our organization is the transparency and ability to have those intimate conversations with Amy, right? And to be able, and Kenneth and the entire ownership group, but to be able to say, here's the information that we've gathered, and here's what makes sense. And she really values that insight, right? Because we're the ones that are receiving those calls or those emails, or hearing what the needs of the community are and being able to go back and talk with it through her and the ownership group, and make an informed, give her the information so that she can help make an informed decision. But I really appreciate that she allows us to have such a strong voice in that. But it's important for us to, when we're doing work from a foundation and community standpoint, it's important to note that the Titans don't just want to go and say, here's what we're going to do, and we just go do it if it's not what the community actually needs. So when we're making those decisions, it's intentionally based on the needs of the community more so than the needs of the Titans. So you're right, there's a plethora of opportunity to be involved in the community here in Nashville, particularly now, because to your point, as we grow, there's a greater need. And so how are we, there's an extreme intentionality in the organization to make sure that when we're going out and we're serving our neighbors, it's a way that helps them, more so being self-serving just to us.
So give me give me an example of how kind of that works. I mean, in a particular area that, because there are so many different things going on. Give me an example of kind of how that plays down, and then how you go out and you try to figure out how to make this work.
Yeah, so the first thing you do is you form those relationships. I will, if I have downtime, I am picking up the phone and I'm calling the executive director of a partner of an organization just to meet with them and learn more about them. And how can I understand, because before I can advise or say this is an organization that makes sense, we've got to get a better understanding of what they do, and learn how there are any opportunities there. So I'm listening through the lens of inclusion, right? So a great example of that would be Bridge Ministries and the work that they do feeding the homeless under the Jefferson Street Bridge, right? That is a rock's throw from our facility and our stadium, actually. So most of us pass through there on a regular basis, going from one location to the next. And so understanding that there's this homeless population there that's continuing to grow, how can we serve them? So find out who the organization is that's feeding them and talk to them. And that's exactly what we did. And so we've supported Bridge Ministries, and not just the feeding under the Jefferson Street Bridge, but the Bridge to Kids school program. And just, it was important for us to learn about who they were and what they did, and then how we can help. So that's a great example of lending foundation dollars, taking our players and staff and cheerleaders and mascot under the bridge and actually feeding that population, working with Second Harvest Food Bank and doing a food drive at the stadium. And so trying to service them as best we can by our likeness, our brand, our presence, and our foundation dollars.
Okay. So as somebody who goes to the games and has been around since 1999, so I know, and I always mess this up, but on the tickets, well, when we had tickets, and now
when we had tickets, yes.
When we had the tickets, it would usually tell you about a particular drive that was going on. So whether it was a coat drive, a toy drive, whatever it was, there was always typically something. And when you'd walk into the stadium, before you actually got too close, there were people there collecting items. How do you all figure out how to do that? Is that done through your office?
Yes, that's done through our office. So you're referencing our game day drives, which And that's a great program because it's an opportunity. When we talk about our community and we talk about serving, we're not talking about we just the Titans organization, but we're including our fans in that, right? And so this is an opportunity for our fans to serve alongside of us. And that's what that's what that program does. It gives the fans an opportunity to see what ways they can be involved. To your point, we don't have tickets anymore. So that information is sent out, whether it's on our social platforms or to media outlets or what have you. But that is a way to get the fans to be a part of doing something greater than themselves. And again, we've cultivated relationships and try to figure out what the needs of the community are, whether it's fill the boot or cell phones for soldiers or toys for tots. What are the needs of the community as we lead into the 2022 football season that we can lend our hands to? And that's how we make those decisions. And we try to plan the actual drive around the need. We know that the Pencil Foundation has their greatest needs for school supplies at the beginning of the year. We understand that it's better to do it at the first regular season versus first preseason because we're going to have a larger audience at a regular season game. So we're very intentional about when we're going to do each drive to get the largest donation, as well as when it benefits the partner organization.
I think your dog said that was a good answer.
Like that. We don't do anything for him, so maybe he's like, don't forget me.
Yeah, okay, I got it. There may be a pet drive of something.
Actually, I was about to say we do. That was not a correct statement. We do actually do something for him as well, but not him, but dogs.
Okay. So speaking as someone who always forgets what the drive is, and also probably doesn't check the email that comes in that says, hey, this is what you need to know about.
Oh, you're that guy. Okay.
I'm that guy. So how do I remember? How are you going to remind me, unless you just call me personally?
I may have to get your number. Yes.
This is the code drive. Maybe you could put it up on the board or something, and then I would remember the next game. I don't know. I always forget.
I appreciate that feedback, because one of the things with the removal of paper tickets, we have to be creative in getting that information out. One of the things we are looking at doing this year is a virtual auction, so that you can either, if you want to purchase a canned good and just send it directly to the partner organization versus bringing the canned good to the stadium. We're looking at ways to be able to still have opportunities there for people who don't necessarily remember to bring those items with them to the stadium, and it'll extend beyond just game day. So it may start, we're trying to figure it out right now, but it may start on Friday and go through Thursday of the next week, so that there's this, trigger, whether you're sitting in the game and you're like, oh man, I just saw that, let me do something now. So we want to make sure that we're servicing everybody who wants to participate.
Okay. Okay, so I've got lots of other different questions, but one that just came through, and that was the most unique partnership you've ever had in terms of the Titans with a particular group.
You're asking me to think 20-something odd years back.
I didn't ask the question, it just came through on the chat box. So I'm doing my.
I think everybody loves everything we do to the point of puppies and dogs. That's always very fun. We've gotten some unique requests, but partnerships, animals are always easy. Animals and babies are always like, everybody loves those, but we do a lot with, whether it's, nursing homes and Meals on Wheels, and we do a lot with the youth sports community, and girls flag football is something we're working with right now. And so there's just been, it's a very humbling opportunity to learn about all the grassroots ways that people are serving the community that you just don't necessarily know are happening. And so I enjoy going out and learning about all of those opportunities. And, even though I do this for a profession, it's an opportunity for me to serve too. So there's just, gosh, there's too many ways to mention. But it's fun to learn about them. Yeah.
So remember, and I don't know if they did it this year or not, with the Super Bowl, they used to have the Puppy Bowl.
They did it.
Okay, so they did it. So I missed it this year.
Yeah.
So
it was Snoop Dogg and Martha Stewart.
Okay. So how come we don't do that on the field at halftime and have dogs run around and play?
I can definitely mention that to our game day entertainment folks and say that there is a request to have a Puppy Bowl type on the field and see what they say.
Okay. All right. I know you'd have to clean up maybe after the game,
you only have a short period of time during halftime, and if there's an accident on the field and the players got to come back, it could be slippery. But no, I'll bring it up.
All entertainment. All right. So do you all work with the people that are doing the game day activities?
Yes.
Okay. So a series of questions with that. Lance, the guy who has the microphone, runs around. Does he work with you all, or does he work for some other part of the Titans organization?
He's part of game day entertainment, but I know that there has, that's his role, or he reports through the game day entertainment. But yeah, if there's a need for him to, do voiceovers for some of the video features that we do, highlighting the work in the community, he does that as well.
So does he pick the people to be on the contest, or do you all do that? Are you all finding people in terms of community impact to be a guest of his when he's, when they're playing the games?
So that's all through game day entertainment.
Okay. So you don't know whether the people who are being asked are given the answers beforehand, so they make sure. Okay. I didn't ask that question.
I'm certain it's a very honest process.
I'm sure it's a very honest process. Okay. All right. So let's go back for a minute. So the Walter Payton Award, which is a big deal. It was Kevin Byard who was nominated this year. Was that right?
It was actually Derrick Henry this year.
Oh, Derrick. That's right. Derrick Henry was nominated. Maybe Kevin was nominated.
Byard was last year, correct?
Oh, by last year. Okay. That's right. Because Derrick Henry was, that's right. And they listed them all out. So how does that process work within the organization? How do you, who selects the nominee?
That's a really fun process, because when it's always amazing when the younger guys come, or guys come from another team, they're like, I'm going to be it this year. So there's like, with anything with these guys, there's this competition to do the best work or to do the most because they want to be nominated. And so we'll take the guys, the top number, however many that is, guys, and get all of their information regarding the work that they're doing in the community for the calendar year. And we'll create these nomination sheets, and the players, and they vote on who that person is based on their on the field and off the field performances. And so it's, it's probably one of the higher honors in the locker room, and the young guys coming in really look up to those individuals. And it's helpful for us in the community impact department, because now when we're going and we're showing, here are some of the ways we're involved, and you've got veterans on the roster like Ryan Tannehill and Kevin Byard and Derrick Henry, showing the work that they do in the community. The younger guys coming in like a Jeffrey Simmons is like, I want to do that. Here's what I'm, interested in. Help me be more active in that space. And so it's really good that honor really, brings integrity to the community impact work that the organization does. And having that player advocate really, really makes a difference.
Okay, so let me ask you this from just because I wasn't never sure how all this worked. So maybe because I just went right into it, the Walter Payton Award, what is that? So people who don't know, what is that award?
So the Walter Payton Man of the Year is an individual on the roster who is successful on the field and extremely active in the community on that team. So each team has a Man of the Year candidate. So the Tennessee Titans Man of the Year, Derrick Henry, is now one of 32 nominees for the Walter Payton Man of the Year, which is the NFL's honor. And so then those individuals now are voted on who will become the Walter Payton Man of the Year.
All right, so the Titans players kind of select who they think it should be.
Organization, like with our guidance, right? We pull together, here's the work that this player's done, and then we do like a ballot, so to speak, and just show food drives or, speaking to kids. And ideally, this individual takes initiatives beyond just what the team offers to be actively engaged. So it's not just what Tina and the community impact team are saying, hey, go to this school, hey, come play with this, like they're going above and beyond that and finding ways to be involved in the community. Oftentimes, and you may or may not know the work that they're doing. And those are the guys that are intentionally doing it, and they're driven and they have a desire to make a difference beyond just being an athlete, right? Sometimes you'll get with their PR teams and they'll tell you all the work that they've done, and you may or may not have had any idea because they're not doing it for publicity. They're doing it because they genuinely are wanting to make a difference in that particular space.
Okay. So, and then tell the viewers, how is the actual award given? Because it's given at the Super Bowl. So you have 32 representatives of teams, right, and then they select the winner. So yeah, how is that done? So
we do it. The league wants every team to announce at the same time. So we go through the process, and the player doesn't know until it's announced. And I, work with John Robinson and Mike Vrabel on how and when to announce it. And it's typically done in front of the team, or it's been done at if a player is actively involved with Boys and Girls Club, they'll do it there. Like, we'll do it in a way that surprises the player and it's delightful. And then the league will announce each one of the team's nominees. And then the league has the NFL Honors Awards, where they'll announce who the nominees are. And then at the Super Bowl, they'll do the actual winner.
So we don't get a vote like for Derrick Henry. Like I can't call the NFL office and say, I really like Derrick Henry and he should win. They have a, I can. It just,
you should and see what happens. I'm not sure if they'll take that into consideration, but it's worth a try.
You think they take my call?
We'll see.
Okay. All right. So so let me ask you this. Obviously I thought it was Kevin Byard, and then I remember watching the Super Bowl and I remember Derrick Henry. Right. So how do we, for the, I assume the fans know, but for other people to know that Derrick Henry is out there doing lots of good things in the community, how do we get that word out so that we actually know, because sports is an important role in the community, right? But the broader impact is sometimes what some people are much more interested in, because people do look up to the players, and they do look up to the team, and there is a good way of promoting lots of good qualities to others. And so we should know what Mr. Henry is doing for the city. Yeah. And can we do a better job of that? And
we can always do a better job, but yeah. I do, we use social a lot. We get a lot of the information out on our social channels. Media, we send, our communications team does a great job of getting that information out and trying to be intentional on what stories to get out and when to get them out. The player socials, they get a lot of their information out themselves, what they're comfortable with. And I would agree with you. We've transitioned to a time. There was a time where fans didn't want to hear about anything but football. We're a football team, so only talk about football. And then slowly but surely, we've moved to this era where people really are interested in the philanthropic efforts of the people that they admire, right? And so we try to make sure we're telling those stories in a way that's authentic to the players, but connects with the audience. But yeah, we're constantly working to try to make sure that we're getting those out every opportunity that we have, so that there is that genuine connection between Derrick Henry, the person, Derrick Henry, the person who wants to serve the community, and then the fans that are engaging.
How's his foot doing?
He played, so
I know that.
that's
Okay,
all.
I thought you had inside information you were going to give. Okay. All right. So let me ask a much broader question. The role between the Titans and what you do in the broader perspective of the NFL. Obviously, over the last couple of years, there's been a very strong push to focus in on diversity, inclusion, equity, eliminate racism. You see it, you see it on the players' helmets. You see it on the football field. How does that play into what you do? And then tell us kind of how the NFL comes down. They have an overall broader message. How does that come down? And then how do the Titans respond, and what do we do about it?
So, when this really kind of surfaced, right, the good thing that came out of it for us as an organization is real conversations. Sitting down with players, and Amy was present, and J-Rob was present, and Vrabel was present, and just having conversations about, the one thing I will say is social justice means so much and is so different to every individual. That's not like defining what a dog is. You can say what that is, but when you talk about social justice, it's just a broad term, and it means something different for everyone. And so we had to stop and have those conversations, and we met very regularly about that, with no real defined purpose other than having those conversations. And then once people are comfortable talking about what everything means to them, then you move to the next level of, okay, what can we start to do, and how can we assist you, and what levels of support make most sense? And those same conversations were happening on the league level and around the NFL on 32 teams. And then you start to say, okay, this is the area that I feel like we would like to focus on, or these are the areas, or here's what I'm doing. How can you support me? And then how am I using my brand in a way that's positive, that encourages others to use their opportunities to make a difference? So when you hear terms like, social justice and diversity and inclusion, and all these terms that are intended for togetherness, I think the one thing that we want to make sure is we're very intentional about starting here and understanding what it means in each individual person, and then how are we using our brand and using ourselves and our staff and our players and our people to actually model that. So that has really been like the good exercise that's come from it. Everyone is hyper aware and extremely intentional in paying attention to it. And that's like a lifestyle change, right? Like paying attention to it, not just as Tina with the Titans, but paying attention to it, Tina sitting in her home, or Tina in the community, or Tina who worships, or Tina who is a family member. Like, how are we being extremely intentional in our lifestyles so that now it transitions and it translates to who we are as a part of or a member of the organization. And so we have been doing that. And we have done that for some time now. And I think that I'm pretty proud of where we were, or where we started in the process, and where we are in this journey. And so the league does that. They sit down with players, they sit down with member organizations, they listen, they take They take the information that's gained and says, how can we do this? And then people, the players vote on it and they decide, and that's what is rolled out. So it's not just the league saying, here's what we're going to do in this space, or the team saying, here's what we're going to do. It is through a very tedious process of understanding first and then making the decision to act in those spaces.
Okay. So obviously, as you said, kind of trying to understand, it's not just, here's the answer and we go. This goes back over so many years, and so many people have opinions and what we should do and what we shouldn't do, and it's an ever-changing movement. How would you, particularly because it seems, which is a good thing, that particularly for the last couple of years, NFL has really tried to drive that message, and good for them, because I think it's important, and I think they understood the importance of it. So again, you're talking about a sports thing that is having a much broader impact on the world in which we live. So I guess, and you may have answered it, but particularly in terms of how you get, because all cities are different, where all these teams are playing are all different. How do you get the impact from the Nashville community to figure out kind of how Nashville is unique in this picture? And the surrounding, it's the Tennessee Titans, so you have lots of different things going on. So we're a lot different from other cities. We're going through a lot of the growth that a lot of other cities have had before us. But how do you kind of get the pulse of the community so that when you are trying to make these decisions, you have a better idea of what challenges you're facing as you try to make a difference?
The best way to get the pulse of the community is to go to the community. And that's exactly what we do. We are not afraid to have those conversations. They're not all peaches and cream. They're not all rosy. We have to be willing to be comfortable being uncomfortable, listening to those level of conversations. And the other part of that is a lot of, when you think about the community, we are the community too. You think about our players or our staff and the makeup of that, right? They're a part of the community. And so they have voices as well. So it's important to be willing to listen to everybody. And when you think about whether it's Nashville, it's extremely different from Memphis, which is extremely different from East Tennessee, right? And we're the Tennessee Titans. And so when we're talking about listening to the makeup of our fan base or the community at large, we've got to be willing to listen to all of those and navigate the process along the way. So if we truly are making a difference and impacting the needs, not being self-serving, we've got to go out and have those conversations. And so that's just what we do. We're often out talking to members of our community about some of the challenges. And listen, that's what we're doing. We're just listening. Many times we're just listening because, again, we've got to understand. And how do you understand if you're not willing to go out and have those conversations?
Okay. All right. So we have about 10 minutes left. So I've got I think I've got 4 questions for you.
Okay.
So, and one of which just popped in my head because you're talking about the Tennessee Titans. So when I'm at the game and I'm watching the Jumbotron and the screen, most of the things that it looks like the foundation or what the Titans are trying to do, I see the local implications, but you are the Tennessee Titans. So how much involvement do you have from a community impact in East Tennessee? Do you spend time up there because it is the Tennessee Titans, even though, they play in Nashville?
Right.
How much time do you spend in Memphis and trying to figure out their community impact? And is the majority of the focus, because you're here in Nashville, on Nashville, or are you trying to spread it out a little bit?
It's a combination of all of the things, right? Pre-pandemic, we were doing the caravan, and that would go from East Tennessee to West Tennessee, Northern Kentucky, and Southern Alabama, because those are considered the Tennessee Titans market places. We haven't done it since then for reasons understood. But so an opportunity to support those communities is very important to us. One of the ways that on a smaller scale that we're supporting the East Tennessee community right now is through the Tennessee Titans Regional Spelling Bee that we host every year as part of the Scripps National Spelling Bee. And we're one of, there might be another team, I think the Panthers are now jumping on board, but we host a spelling bee for, they had lost their sponsor here in the Middle Tennessee community. And so we host the spelling bee and we send the winners to Washington to participate in the Scripps National Spelling Bee. Well, we now, this is the first year we've included Memphis in the past when they've had issues. But this year we're also adding Knoxville. So we're hosting a spelling bee in Knoxville as well, so that those kids will be able to have the spelling bee. So when there are opportunities for us to support communities outside of just Middle Tennessee, we definitely welcome those, whether it be from a foundation standpoint, or again, if we can go and do something during the off season, understanding there's a distance, we definitely want to do that. But another good thing that's come from the pandemic is being able to support virtually. We can put players and kids on the Zoom and they will love it just as much as if they were there in person. So yeah, it's important for us to support. Another example was with the floods in West Tennessee. We were able to support the United Way of West Tennessee in their cleanup efforts as well.
Okay. All right. So let me ask you a question you may not be able to answer because nobody's quite sure where all this is going. But we had a question come in about what the Titans are, at least are planning or thinking about doing around the stadium and other things. But particularly from the standpoint of what you all do, community impact and the needs of the community, without getting into what may happen or whatever. But from a community impact, are you all having discussions with people around the area or the city leadership to kind of figure out, okay, so if they were to do something, how can we better impact the community by what we're doing?
The question to the answer, or the answer to the question is yes, we are having those conversations. And so it's, again, going back to listening. That is exactly where we are. Whether it is members of the community or the leadership, we are definitely having those conversations. And when we get to that point to be able to make those decisions, we want to make sure that whatever decisions are made are positively impacting the communities surrounding us. Okay.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Another question, because this happened at the Bengals game. So obviously Nashville is a destination point. So we do get a lot of people coming from out of town to support their teams.
Right.
And I go with people who love after the game where the players are exchanging jerseys and hugging each other. And, everybody's happy, even though they just tried to beat the crap out of each other for 3 hours. It's interesting to watch how we react to other fans. And I know we don't want people to fight, but they do get into fights in the stands. So one of the things that I just came from a group this morning that is talking about trying to solve divisiveness. It's okay to root for your team against another team. It's okay to yell and scream, but in the end, it's a football game, and somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. So is there ever efforts to try to make sure that, in the bigger scheme of things, as we're all trying to end divisiveness and get along with each other, that at the end, we all should just shake hands and go, good game?
You would hope, that we can get to that place. I think messaging, we try to, give the right messaging at the end of games to say, thank you for coming and so forth and so on. And we try to manage it best we can. We have numbers where you can call if there's someone getting rowdy to ask them to either calm it down or to be removed. But at the end of the day, it goes back to the individuals and the intentions and being able to be a good steward and be respectful and all those things you teach your children growing up. You're hopeful that when those individuals get to a football game, they remember them. But
I did. We had a number of Bengals fans around us at the game.
Yeah.
And it was nice. I mean, because it was obviously it was a very good game. We didn't like the outcome, but they beat us. And I think I remember talking to somebody behind us and saying, you know what, I'm very impressed with Joe Burrows, their quarterback, because our defense played tremendously well and sacked him 11 times, unless you take the 2 away for the penalties or whatever.
Right.
And for somebody to stand in and take that type of beating is just pretty darn amazing.
Yeah.
And so kudos to both teams. But then as I was walking out, the security had to come down and chase some other people around who were yelling and screaming at each other, because it was, and it's like, just don't do that. So anyway, just the point, you can put it down.
Just be better, but I'll make a note of that.
Make a note. I've got all kinds of notes for you.
Okay.
So we got about 3 minutes left. I got one easy question and one really hard question for you as we end.
Okay.
So do you get to spend a lot of time properly in the locker room talking to the players and stuff like that? Or are you banned from going in there and you can't talk to them?
So I don't go in. I have gone in, but if I go in, I'm assured that they're all closed.
That was kind of understood. But do you ever go in there and do you give the pep talk and go out there and be courteous to each other?
No, I stay in my lane.
Remember community impact. Do you do that, or?
I leave that all up to Coach and J-Rob
All right.
pep talk. I stick with the community stuff.
Okay, I thought maybe you got to go in there and give them the pep talk.
But if ever given the opportunity, I will.
Okay, and you do not run out with the team when they come out.
I do not run out with the team.
All right, and has T-Rack ever run you over in a golf cart?
T-Rack has never run me over. I've ridden in the golf cart with him on numerous occasions, but he has never run me over.
Okay, because I don't think he can drive very well. I'm just that's another thing you should.
Well, T-Rack and Tennessee Titans Entertainment actually falls under community impact, so he does okay. I'll make sure that he improves if you guys think he needs to, though.
Okay, he may need to take another driver's course. Okay, and the last question. Okay, and so I'm going to put a caveat on it, but you've been with the organization, Memphis, and they came this way. Mm-hmm. Disregarding all the players that are on the team right now, give me a couple of examples of players that just were so nice and were so helpful to the overall community from what you do. People that, and I know lots of people do lots of different things, but that's why it's a hard question. It's like, give me a couple of people who just, you just look back and go, they were just great.
There's so many, and most of them you probably wouldn't know their names because they weren't marquee players. Casey Kramer, Mark Mariani, Michael Griffin, Marcus Mariota, great Marcus Mariota story, training camp or a caravan or what have you. There would be lines around the corner and we would cut them off. And there would be a kid that didn't get it. And he's like, nope, we're not leaving until I sign every single autograph. And so then I had to start moving the end of the line away from his sight line if we wanted to keep our schedule, because he was intentional on making sure that there was not a kid, because he remembered when he was a kid at Pro Bowl in Hawaii and didn't get an autograph, and he was never going to let a kid feel the way he felt that day. So it's just story after story of these guys being so thoughtful and being equally as thoughtful off the field and who they were as community advocates as they were as people. And there's just a number of guys that you can go on and on about. There are more guys with that type of mentality than there are not.
That's really, really good to know. Yeah. Hey, Tina, it's 11 o'clock. Interesting conversation, great conversation. Let me ask you a question. If the best way to get information is to go to the Tennessee Titans website, if that's what if somebody's interested in something or wants to, ask for something from the Titans or from a player or overall from the foundation, go to the Tennessee Titans website and then look for community impact? Is that the best way to do it?
Community. So it's a tab at the top that says community. So TennesseeTitans.com, and then click on the community tab, and there should be whether every question you need answered should be there.
All right. So our guest today has been Tina Tuggle, the Vice President of Community Impact for the Tennessee Titans. We're working on next week's program. I think we were juggling around a little bit. So, but we'll be back next Saturday. And the last thing I will ask you is your prediction for the Tennessee Titans next year.
Great things ahead every year. I'm the most optimistic. We're going to do it every year. So
you're just supposed to say, you know what? All the way to the Super Bowl.
All the way. We're there. We'll be in Phoenix next year. So.
Okay. All right, Tina, thank you. Thanks everybody for listening. Great conversation. Very much appreciate it. Thanks to what the Titans do. And everybody be safe this weekend. Have a wonderful weekend, a wonderful holiday. Okay. Thanks everybody.
Thanks.
Bye.